This season's Champions League Group B, it's Porto against Liverpool from 8 o'clock tonight. Hi there, welcome along to the Matchday Live preview on what is a sad day for Liverpool. One of the club's most influential figures, Roger Hunt, has passed away at the age of 83. Roger joined in 1958 and scored the first of his 285 goals for the club a year later on his debut. A huge part of Bill Shankly's team that were promoted from the old second division in 1962. He then won 2 league titles in 64 and 66, either side of scoring the first goal in Liverpool's first ever FA Cup final win over Leeds in 1965. Internationally, he was, of course, part of the England team that won the World Cup in 1966, world champions for the first and only time. Humble and unassuming, but hugely influential. His presence will be missed, but his achievements will always be remembered. Well, Gary Gillespie and Jason McAteer are with me in the studio this evening. Good evening to both of you, and we seem to be doing this all too regularly, Gary, saying goodbye to great men in this club's history.
Yeah, and a great man, yes. Very humble kind of person. Used to come to the games quite regular. We had quite a strong former players association as well. He always attended these dues. Great fun to be with, great company. And it's a sad loss. I think if you asked any of the guys that came behind him, the likes of Rushy, the likes of like John Aldridge, his was always the targets that you wanted to win and beat. And he did so much for the football club, not just as like a player, but as an ambassador as well. Fantastic career and sadly missed.
I said it there, Jason, about the humility of the man to have achieved so much in his club career, to have won the World Cup. You wouldn't know it talking to you, would he? Kept himself to himself and didn't want the fanfare that his incredible career deserved.
Yeah, that was the character he was. I met him a few times socially, as Gary said, you know, at various events. He would turn up. He wouldn't have a great deal to say, kept himself to himself, but if you went over and said hi, he was always on hand to give you a smile back. One thing I always thought about him is he always looked young, he always looked fresh-faced, didn't he? He didn't seem to age. And obviously he's John Aldridge's hero, isn't he? So Aldo goes on about him all the time, you know, his records, the goals he scored, how he scored them. So I felt I knew him from that, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, you've just rolled off his roll call there to win, you know, the league and the World Cup in one season. Is some achievements, isn't it? But fantastic fella. He'll be greatly missed, as you mentioned before. It's happening too regular at the moment.
When I spoke to my dad about him earlier, Gary, who was lucky to have a ticket for the World Cup final, I said to him, you know, what was he like? Because I obviously haven't seen too much of him, and some of our younger viewers would probably be the same. He said he was a proper Bill Shankly type player. He was a worker. Can you explain that for us?
Well, I think he was an integral part of like the way that Liverpool played at the time. It was, you know, very much a heart on your sleeve kind of up and at them kind of attitude. Difficult to put him into modern day terms. I think, you know, to recognise him as a player in this modern day era, I don't think you can actually compare him with anybody. But when the ball came into the box, he was a goal scorer. He was in the right position at the right time, like all good goal scorers are. The likes of like Ian Rush, the likes of John Aldridge, the likes of like Torres as well. You know, they're all in the right place at the right time. And you know, I think the beauty about him was the fact that he had such a great combination with Ian St John as well, who sadly passed away a couple of months back as well. And it's a shame, but you know, that generation has come just off that age now where unfortunately we not celebrate, but we have these like funerals so often these days, and it's never nice. But I think to be remembered like the way he is, and I think everybody will remember as Sir Roger Hunt, and not just Roger Hunt. And that, I think that speaks volumes for not just the man, but the personality of him as well.
It's such a shame, these great players, because of the footage that we haven't got of them. You know, I mean, now if you want to see Messi, Ronaldo, and we laud the you know, the numbers and the stats that they're producing, but then, you know, we lost Jimmy Greaves, you know, last week, but there's not a great deal of footage about him. You can only go off what people kind of tell you about them. But the footage that you do see, I mean, I just watched there, and you were trying to say what he was like. He reminded me of Aldo, and I kind of see Aldo in him. I wonder if Aldo sees himself in Roger Hunt. But it's a shame we don't have the footage, because these were true legends. I think
Roger was a better player than Aldo.
Aldo would probably agree with that, I'm sure. Gary, you just touched on it there, the partnership with Ian St John as well. And I was reading an interview with Tommy Smith earlier. He said, look, you know, you had Rush and Dalglish, you had Toshak and Keegan, but this was the one for me, Ian St John and Roger Hunt, and they had incredible success together.
But I think, you know, when you talk about Liverpool, and we're talking about it in the modern day era, you know, players have to go before that, and that was kind of the start of the modern day Liverpool as we kind of know it at this moment in time. He was part of that setup, part of the Bill Shankly-like regime, and obviously alongside Ian St John, integral part of the way the club has developed and the way the club is at this moment in time. And I think people tend to forget that. I think when you grow up and know the history of the football clubs, I think I read an article or listened to an article about Jamie Carragher and Sir Steven Gerrard. They kind of went out their way to make the foreign players aware of just what had gone before them. And obviously Sir Roger was a name that was probably not too familiar to the foreign players, but certainly to the likes of Cara and the likes of Steven Gerrard, right up there with the legends of the football club.
And it's interesting as well, Jason, to sort of reflect back on the summer just gone and the incredible amount of fanfare that came with England just reaching the final of a European Championships. He still remains part of that elite group, a small selection, the only team that have ever delivered any success in terms of international football for England.
Yeah, and it's massive. I mean, I got to play under Jack Charlton, who obviously was in the same team, and you know, what an achievement. And obviously having been to the World Cup as well, you know, I laud on the fact that I just went to 2 and it was fantastic. These fellas actually won it. It's
talking about that, I was listening on the radio on the way in tonight. There's only 3 people not sold their medals from that World Cup squad, and Sir Roger being one of them, and the Charlton brothers are the other 2.
Wow.
There you go.
Modern day terms, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, lovely tributes from the both of you. There's also been, of course, some from Jürgen Klopp today. This is what he had to say about the passing of Roger Hunt. It's really sad news, and our thoughts and love go to his family. Unfortunately, it feels too frequent in this moment. We are saying farewell to these giants of the club. Roger Hunt comes second to no one in his importance in the history of Liverpool FC. That much is clear. To be the goal-scoring catalyst of the Shankly team, to actually achieve promotion and then go on to win those precious league titles and the FA Cup puts him in a bracket of LFC legends who were responsible for making us the club we are today. Not only that, he was also a World Cup winner in 1966 too. I am told the Kop christened him Sir Roger for all his achievements. A goal-scorer who never stopped working to help his teammates. I believe he would have fit in well with our current team. So it is Sir Roger we will remember, honour and pay tribute to over the coming days. You'll never walk alone. Tribute to Roger Hunt, who passed away yesterday at the age of 83. But Roger Hunt would, of course, be hoping that Liverpool would focus on a big game tonight in the Champions League over in Portugal. And there for us is Peter McDowell.
Thanks, Rob. Good evening. Welcome to the Dragão Stadium for the first time tonight. It's been a beautiful day here in the coastal region of the city, here in Porto. And, of course, this place holds such brilliant memories for Liverpool. Still Porto's biggest defeat in Europe, that 5-0 game. They've had a pretty similar start to the season to Liverpool as well, unbeaten in 8 games. They've won the last 3 here, though, without conceding a goal. That represents very obvious danger, and certainly where the history is concerned as well. Jürgen Klopp is fearful that they will be really intent to get one over on Liverpool tonight, so they have to be aware when that is concerned as well. They went through some kind of messages today nearby at the Boavista Stadium, but again, Jürgen Klopp was very suspicious about who might have been in the stadium, so they couldn't do shape. So 2 days of recovery, and that shape work was done yesterday. So what kind of thoughts did he have about the team with Manchester City ahead this coming Sunday? Is he tempted to maybe change the centre of that defence with the amount of strength he has there ahead of taking on the champions this coming weekend? Of course, James Milner and Naby Keita are fit as well now. So does he think about that change inside the midfield too? And certainly where this competition is concerned, they've never won the first 2 on the spin 2 years running. We should not waste time, according to Jürgen Klopp. Certainly with the style of Porto tonight, they are likely to go direct and play off second ball. So that defensive display as a team, he thinks, needs to be so much better than it was at Brentford in the weekend just gone. So plenty to think about for the manager and the coaching staff in the past 24 hours. And of course the players, as you mentioned at the start of the show, will wear black armbands in remembrance of Sir Roger Hunt, who sadly passed away last night. We'll have team news confirmed for you here an hour before we begin.
Yeah, I've mentioned it a couple of times already through the course of the programme. Liverpool have had a couple of handsome wins over in Portugal under Jürgen Klopp. He says that counts for nothing this time around.
Most of the games can go either way. That's how it is. There are decisive moments in the game where you have to score. If you don't score, but they score in a decisive moment. Yes, we were good. We are good. That's all clear. But they are a top side, no doubt about that. They qualify year in year out for the Champions League. They are always first or second in the Portuguese league. That's a top team, and that's what we are preparing for. Not for a team we beat in the past. That's why I said for us it's not an advantage. For them, of course, it's for sure another reason for being motivated on the highest level. That's clear. So that's the situation. We cannot change that. I'm still happy that we won the games when we were there, but we don't think we won this game already halfway or whatever. We know it will be tricky.
Well, it always looked a difficult draw, Jason, when the groups came out, but Liverpool have a decent chance to take a firm control of Group B tonight.
Yeah, they do, and I think of the teams that come out of the hat, obviously you look at Atletico Madrid because they've been a bit of a scourge in recent years, haven't they, to us? Knocked us out last time, and obviously the size of Milan, although they're coming back into it after 7 or 8 seasons of exile in the Champions League, they look like the two big teams in the group, and we kind of never really spoke about Porto, but this game shouldn't be taken lightly. Although you mentioned the last 2 games have wielded 9 goals for us and been pretty handsome wins, this is a different side. Sergio Conceição, the manager, he'll know the importance of this game. He'll know how good Liverpool are, and he's a bit of a tactician himself. He changes the squad. He's got players who can come in. He can mix it. When I say change the squad, he can change the formation. I mean, he can go 4-4-2. He can go 4-2-3-1. He's got players that are here, and they're in a good moment at the moment. They're unbeaten in 7. They've scored goals and they've got a couple of clean sheets. So shouldn't be taken lightly, this fixture.
Yeah. On the flip side to that, I remember the last time we played them, I think they were top of the table, weren't they? And I don't think they had lost a game. It's how strong is the Portuguese league at this moment in time, I think, which will determine how difficult a game this is for Liverpool tonight. I think we saw from the games in the past that Liverpool went in a dominated situation and won quite comfortably. But I think Porto, are a little bit better. Never failed to get to Europe, haven't they? Like 73, 74, I think was
the last 25 group stages. Only Barcelona and Real Madrid have more. So
they've got a great pedigree in this competition. Well, not in this, but in European competition. So, but they're a team that never really seemed to go on and be successful, other than the time when Mourinho was manager. But it's always a tough call for any away team in European football. But sometimes I think we maybe read too much into it, and I think if Liverpool, as I said this before, I think if Liverpool we've got to the stage now, if Liverpool turn up and play how we know they can play, then I think their performance dictates the result of the game. And if they do play, I think they win this game comfortably.
Having said that though, Jason, that would mean an improvement on Saturday, wouldn't it, where Liverpool were ragged by their own high standards?
Yeah, and I think you've got to take your hat off to the way Brentford played. Thomas Frank, I think, tactically got it right. I mean, you could argue, at 3-2, if Salah it takes the opportunity, we go 4-2, it's game over. But they were still brave. They still knocked on the door, Brentford. They had a game plan and it almost played out perfectly for them, didn't it? I've seen quite a bit of the analysis. Some pundits suggesting, ex-players suggesting they overloaded. I've seen Jamie Carragher's last night who thought it was just about a numbers game, and it was just the fact that they had more players in that area at that time. But you've still got to be brave and leave men up, and they did that. They asked questions of Liverpool, and that's how I've always said. To beat Liverpool, you either play on the break and get lucky and take your opportunities, or you go toe-to-toe. And I felt Brentford went toe-to-toe with Liverpool and got their rewards. They occupied Matip, they occupied Virgil van Dijk, they give them questions to ask, which doesn't usually happen on a Saturday. They got down the flanks, they knew Liverpool's full-backs would be pushing on, and there was areas to exploit, and they knew that putting balls in a box, who knows where the bits are going to end up. And a couple of times there they got lucky and they finished them off, and they got a just reward. I think got a just point was a good result for them.
Pete mentioned it when we crossed to Portugal in terms of team news tonight. Centre defensively, what would you do?
Difficult, isn't it? He also mentioned the fact that Porto game plan might go long early, and I think we saw that down at Brentford. For once we probably saw a little bit ruffled Van Dijk. I thought Matip was probably the steadier of the two centre-backs between the two of them. Tony gave them a real torrid time, and that might be the case again tonight. But I think if you come up against Liverpool and you're playing like the centre-backs there that we see, you have to be brave. You have to get bodies into the box to cause them problems. Now, will Porto do that tonight? I'm not 100% sure. Rotation is going to be key with these 4 players throughout the course of the next couple of months. The big problem is you want to get this put to bed quite early as the Champions League and get qualified. But then the other thing is you've got Manchester City at the weekend, which is a massive game. So do you rotate these 4? I'm not 100% sure he'll do it. We'll leave both Van Dijk and Matip out. I think one of them might be left out and one of the other 2 might come in. But which ones, I'm not 100% sure.
The other thing with Van Dijk though, Gary, and I guess sometimes we sort of have to remember that he's not a robot, that he has had a huge, long injury and he made it almost look too easy in the first few games, but it would only be natural, I guess, to have the odd bit of a teething problem when you're coming back into the team after such a serious problem.
Absolutely, and I think, sometimes the first couple of games you run on adrenaline and because you've been out for so long, you kind of get through games that way, and then it kind of maybe takes its toll a little bit. But I saw a really conscious effort from Brentford to upset the 2 centre-backs at the time at the weekend, and they did that, and they did it exceptionally well. Tony has a fantastic leap. He jumps early, very difficult to play against. And I've never really seen Matip and Van Dijk lose as many headers as maybe what they did at the weekend. Then you've got to deal with the second balls, and I think second balls are always key. And probably at times we probably didn't deal with that too well at the weekend. But let's face it, had we taken the chances at the right time of the game, then I think we would have got the 3 points. And I think Brentford will upset quite a few teams throughout the course of the season down there. So it's not really a bad result, I don't think.
Looking a fraction further forward, do you think Roberto Firmino might be edging towards a start tonight?
Possibly. I think it all depends on how Conceição goes. I mean, against Atletico, he went 4-4-2, tried to with 2 strikers trying to occupy the centre-half. Gary made a good point, it's whether he wants to be brave and do that. I mean, they got a good 0-0, but it wasn't a great game. There wasn't a great deal of opportunities. It was quite a pragmatic approach from Conceição, but tonight, they might have learned something from the weekend from Brentford. I've got no worries about rotating the squad and players coming in. The manager trusts all the players. We've got to trust him and his decision-making, and if Roberto Firmino plays, I've got no worries with that.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for now. Let's just show you where we're heading throughout the course of the rest of the evening on LFC TV and LFC TV Go. Matchday Live, all the build-up from 7 o'clock, team news from Portugal and interviews from Diogo Jota and Jürgen Klopp. Then comes your full audio commentary with Steve Hunter and Stephen Warnock from 8, and they'll be back at 10 o'clock with all the reaction plus interviews from the Estádio de Dragão as well. Liverpool looking to make it 9 unbeaten against Porto tonight and boost their hopes of making the knockout stages of the Champions League yet again.
Here's Wijnaldum again. Still going Gini Wijnaldum, and Sadio Mane, it's squeezed in, Liverpool lead in the Dragão. Still going here, James Milner, it comes to Salah, surely for Liverpool, it is for Liverpool. James Milner hits the woodwork, and the quickest to response is the quickest man on the field. Salah, and he's got an open expanse of turf to run into. Here come the runners, here comes Firmino, super save, but Sadio Mane makes it 3. It is the archetypal Liverpool goal from one end of the field to the other. Full on Sadio Mane, it's going to be a yellow card. If the referee stops it, he might still give a yellow card, but it's on for James Milner, and James Milner's pass, and Roberto Firmino seals what is another delightful and delicious Liverpool goal. Lovely touch by Mane, and here's Danny Ings, and Mane, and there's a man arriving. Mane doesn't need him! 5 alive for Liverpool in Portugal. Liverpool have simply taken Porto to the cleaners. Return, Origi and Wijnaldum in the middle, that's Salah, Gini Wijnaldum, little layoff for Salah, and there's Mane, goal for Liverpool, on for Alexander-Arnold, Salah goes now, beautiful ball, Mohamed Salah, wonderful goal, that is the Liverpool of old, delivered towards Pepe, super header, it's Eden Militao who meets it in the end. A good supply line for Liverpool goals in the last couple of weeks, and he is again now, and Roberto comfortable passage for Liverpool. It's even more comfortable now because Virgil van Dijk has scored again.